But first tonight, let's tell you exactly where India stands statistically in the war on corona. The total number of cases in the country are 20,471 now. The deaths are 652 in the last 24 hours. The new cases are 1,383. The deaths are 50. The worst hit states are Maharashtra, total cases 5,221, deaths 251. Total cases in Gujarat 2,272, deaths 95 here. Delhi total cases 2,156, death 47. So there is some signs of a slowing down if you see in terms of how the number of cases have gone over the last 10 days. Some signs possibly of a slowing down. But is the world any closer to finding a vaccine, a preventive vaccine for coronavirus? Today I'm going to be joined by one of the world's leading virologists. Dr. Robert Gallo is there in Baltimore. He's the co-founder and director of Institute of Human Virology, University of Maryland. And importantly, he's the co-founder of the International Scientific Advisor Global Virus Network. And he and his team had brought the connection between HIV and AIDS all those years ago. Dr. Gallo, I'm going to join you in a moment. He's going to be joining me there from Baltimore to tell us, is the world closer to finding a vaccine or a cure for coronavirus? Remember, the race for this vaccine is heating up. The United Kingdom will start human trials of a vaccine tomorrow at Oxford University. That's where the drug has been developed. Let's take a look then as we kick off tonight on the attempts across the world to develop a medicine to counter novel coronavirus. It's our top story tonight.
As the anxious world waits for a cure for COVID-19, around 35 companies and academic institutions from across the world are racing against time to create such a vaccine. The Jenner Institute and Oxford Vaccine Group in the UK, led by Professor Sarah Gilbert, believes the world can expect a large amount of this magic vaccine called ChAdOx1 by September of this year.
We might have a result by, say, September.
These scientists are so confident that they have already started manufacturing 1 million doses, all at risk of a trial.
We have started at risk manufacturing this vaccine, not just at the smallish scale that Kath Green described, but with a network of manufacturers, as many as 7, in different places around the world. We have 3 manufacturing partners in the UK, 2 in continental Europe, 1 in India, and 1 in China.
The pharmaceutical giant Johnson & Johnson has announced its plans to begin human clinical trials of its COVID-19 vaccine by September 2020. They also made an ambitious claim of bringing out the first vaccine batches for emergency use by early next year. The company will be working with the US government to scale up the production. And as part of this arrangement, the US government will pay $421 million to support the company's efforts. Another biotech firm, the US-based Moderna, has even started its human trial phase. In an unusual move, Moderna skipped the animal test phase that vaccines go through before it is administered on humans. So how far are we from a vaccine? SARS-CoV-2, as the virus is called, shares between 80 and 90% of its genetic material with other forms of coronaviruses that cause SARS. Scientists had already been working on developing effective vaccines to combat SARS, MERS, are now repurposing them to develop vaccines against COVID-19. SARS-CoV-2 is a novel pathogen in humans, and many of the technologies being used to build vaccines are relatively untested. For the COVID-19 vaccine, researchers are also experimenting with new ways of constructing a vaccine. For the first time, the genetic code of the virus from its RNA is being used to build a vaccine. No vaccine made from genetic material RNA or DNA has ever been approved till date. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization has launched a multi-country drive called Solidarity to isolate drugs already approved by regulators for other diseases that can be utilized to fight COVID-19. The reason they are looking at already safety-tested drugs is that these don't need lengthy clinical trials and many are already on the market. Bureau Report, India Today.
And joining me tonight is a very special guest. He's one of the world's leading virologists, the man who brought the link or discovered the link between HIV and AIDS all those years ago. Privileged that Dr. Robert Gallo at the University of Maryland and the co-founder of the Global Virus Network is joining us on this hunt for a vaccine. Dr. Gallo, as someone who tracked down that HIV AIDS Connect all those years ago, someone widely regarded as an authority on virology and vaccines across the world, I want to look at something that has created a big stir in the world at the moment. You've just said a few days ago that the oral polio vaccine is a possible way to at least stem the tide of coronavirus. Am I correct that the oral polio vaccine may well offer a solution against corona?
You are very correct. I'm even more enthusiastic than you said it, but one is never sure. But it's very important to get everything straight. There are different, we call, well, types of oral polio vaccine, according to some of their testing. And it's the combination of oral polio vaccine, the strain 1 and 3, not 2, just 1 plus 3. But that's a technicality for the purposes of your audience, I believe. But yes, I believe this could really have a major impact and maybe on time for the, let's call it the Southern Hemisphere, and for the parts of the world that you are in. And maybe also for any second wave, for sure, it should be in time for any second wave and future. It might also be applicable to the serious influenza outbreaks. We have every reason to believe that it would be. And we think it could be have a serious impact.
You're making a very important point. You're saying that in a few months from now, you believe that the oral polio vaccine could become a possible way to at least stem coronavirus. And crucially, you're saying South Asia and India in particular could benefit. Remember, doctor, we have a mass immunization program for polio that's been very successful. We also have the BCG vaccination. Are you saying possibly that South Asia and India, because of these immunization campaigns, perhaps has a better chance at resisting coronavirus compared to the Western world and the United States where you are?
The answer to that is, it's a yes and no, because it depends how far away you are from the vaccine. The way this is, the way we are thinking and the way we have seen evidence from the past, decades ago, is that this works not by what we call the lymphoid system, the lymphatic system, the adaptive immune response like antibodies or killer T cells that are reacting specifically and reacting for a very long time, usually, not always, but usually, like measles vaccine lasts a lifetime. Polio vaccine lasts a long time too. But we're talking about that early warning signal, what we call the innate immune system that is even in the invertebrates, the animals with only cartilage that lack a backbone. Their primitive system has only the innate immune system, only the alarm system that works not for years, but works for multiple weeks, let's say, maybe longer, but not much longer, very probably. But in that, you could give it again and again, and you're stopping infection, and you could break the back, I think, of the epidemic done right and done with proper collaboration and mobilization. And we're trying now for the proper funding to move it in the United States, in New York, even in our region, but it's getting a little late in our epidemic.
The reason I'm asking you this, Dr. Gallo, is that compared to the United States, compared to Europe, at the moment, India, the numbers seem relatively manageable, that when you look at the growth of numbers, they seem to be not exponential in terms of virus cases. Does that give you any indication, possibly, that we may be getting it right here in India?
Well, you know, it would be pure speculation on my part. One possibility is genetics. Another, you know, there are various possibilities to explain it. But yes, one possibility could be that some people have maintained this innate immune response. By the way, one of the things we know about the innate immune response, that it includes things that you know about, like interferon, but it's a big sudden emergency reaction. Now, this can last for weeks and weeks, and some people say it might even last for months and months. If that's the case, then those who've been vaccinated more recently should be better off. We want to get everybody that we can, particularly those people in more dangerous situations, the transportation people, the police people, the hospital workers, doctors, nurses, paramedical help, others in the hospital that are just doing the related work, helping in any way, even laundry people and stuff like that. People that are exposed, more likely. We want to urgently get to them. So we're trying to rush this thing forward. We don't think it has absolutely wonderful safety records. In fact, my colleague Konstantin Shumakov, who came from Russia to the American FDA, quite a wonderful virologist himself, and whose father and mother first observed this phenomenon in Russia with the oral polio vaccine in the 1970s. He has pointed out that billions, not millions, billions of people have taken this safely. So, and there's no risk if the person is already vaccinated. For example, in America, we've all been vaccinated. And so there's no risk of getting this additional vaccine. Even though it's live, it means the virus is replicating, not really live, but reproduces. That's why you get such an overwhelming immune response with it. It has to be a live virus, but it's what we call attenuated. It's a genetically modified virus so that it doesn't cause disease.
Can I ask you this, Dr. Gallo? Do you believe, though, that the novel coronavirus is very different from earlier viruses? You looked at the connection of HIV to AIDS and made a major breakthrough all those years ago. Is coronavirus, though, very different from earlier viruses in terms of how contagious it is, including its cousin SARS? Is it much more potent in a way?
No, I don't. Well, not really. Every virus, look, let me explain, or you probably know this, but every virus is different one from another. So they all have unique features. So does this have unique features? Yeah. So does it have unique features from SARS? It's very, very similar to the original SARS, except for one thing. It's more efficient in infection. Why is that? It seems that at least one major reason is that there's a greater affinity, attraction of the spike protein to the cell, our cells, the protein on the cells that this thing interacts with, that there's a greater affinity for the receptor on our cell surfaces for this virus than there is for SARS. That's one likely major reason. So it's more infectious. For sure, it's more infectious.
You're saying it's more infectious. Does that make it much more difficult in this race for a vaccine or a drug or a combination of drugs to emerge possibly in the next few months or in the next year to counter it? I know a number of clinical trials are already on across the world. Human trials are beginning tomorrow in Oxford. Do you believe the nature of coronavirus makes it more difficult to finally get that vaccine?
No, it doesn't mean it makes for a greater dilemma. It means for greater and greater urgency. That's what it means. But it doesn't mean that the science should be that much harder. However, you can't put your hands and faith around the conventional vaccine that gives us a specific long-term adaptive immune response, because people have been giving estimates on right and left on American television, and I'm sure the rest of the world. There's no meaning to that. Why do I say that? Because you have a vaccine when you have a vaccine. You have to prove it works, and you have to prove it's safe. That's going to take some years. I mean, at least. And so, the arguments, whether it's 5 months or 12 months, I mean, really, it's going to be longer than that. And how long, we don't know. And you don't know that a vaccine's going to work. And there's reasons to be concerned about this guy, whether a vaccine will be easy or not. I don't think it's going to be that easy.
You're saying the vaccine development is not going to be that easy. You're saying 5 months to 12 months, but possibly even longer. Given that uncertainty, Dr. Gallo, do you believe the direction taken by countries in India, which went with an early lockdown, a stringent lockdown, is the only way? Or do you believe eventually, as some virologists believe, that herd immunity will have to be built to combat the coronavirus?
I believe that what I've suggested with oral polio vaccine should be added to the menu. Okay, the rest is up to public health and distancing and strong public health measures and good testing. We need better, improved the antibody test. That's important to be able to follow tracing. That is lagging. Scientifically, that's been a real disappointment. And if people are working hard on it, there are plenty of talented people working on it. We will have it, but we've got to make it a bit more specific than has been made so far, or we can get misled in following the tracing.
You're making an important point. Critical, you're saying, in any fight against corona is stronger, better antibody testing. I just want to understand, though, how long will this entire process of finding a vaccine, of finding a solution to combat coronavirus cases? As I said, I know you're doing trials at the moment to find this link, if this polio vaccine can stop coronavirus. What kind of timelines, Dr. Gallo, are you looking at?
Well, we would not give it to people in an advanced stage. We'd give it to people at risk of getting infected to prevent infection. Now, whether or not it slows down infection once you are infected is not known. It's reasonable to theorize that it might, but until we show it works in prevention of lowering the rates of infection, that's our first goal. And how are we doing the trial now? No. The ideas and the development of the ideas and the push forward were many weeks ago. But, it frustratingly takes time. That's all I can tell you. And I know our own country, you have to be able to go through the funding mechanisms. You have to get the FDA approval. You have to get the university's approval. We have collaborators in New York. We have to get their similar university approvals, et cetera. I'm hoping in weeks, not months.
You're hoping, therefore, in weeks, not months, you will have the approvals that will allow you to start the process to build these links between oral polio vaccine and coronavirus. I want to ask you, though, a question that is very critical, that many in India, looking at the uncertain future, Dr. Gallo, are saying. How do you see, though, the next few months? Do you see a greater spike in cases? What kind of prognosis as this virus progresses? Do you see the spread of the virus slowing down over the next few months?
You know what? I don't want to say. The last prophets I read about were if you're a Christian, it's in the Old Testament, right? Or in the New Testament. So I don't want to be able to let you feel I can tell with certainty anything like that. Mm-hmm. Because let me say, it looks like there's flattening in most of the United States. Let's take the country that I know best. Mm-hmm. So it looks like it'll go on the downside. It looks like that happened in China. But we don't know if there will be a second wave. Will we have so-called herd immunity? How do we know there is any herd immunity? Is that always the case? Every time you get antibodies, are you protected? No, not really. But in some cases, yes. But we don't know that's going to happen. We don't know there won't be subsequent infections.
You're pointing out to the point that many are, you're pointing out towards what many are concerned about, possibly a second wave of infections. But I want to understand your prescription. What do you believe should governments and public health systems do over the next few months, given this uncertainty?
Well, what I already said is, you got to maintain until we see better the so-called social distancing that they're doing. We got to take public health measures and be very careful. We need to be sure we have a good number two. We need to be sure we have good antibody testing, mm-hmm. so we can tell who has been infected. It has to be more specific than the ones that are out there now. They're not quite specific enough. That's still a research problem. It will be solved. When we have a good specificity, with widespread testing, we'll know if this thing is spreading and coming back or not with certainty. We won't be asking me to make prophecies or prognosis. We'll know how it's happening, okay? And thirdly, I recommend what I said. First, that yes, there are drugs becoming available. Clinical trials need to be going on for the people that are infected with the available stuff, and more will be coming, and more interesting ones should be coming, and more specific ones should be coming. And fourth and last, I want to see the oral polio vaccine program get moving. And by the way, I received information from clinical scientists in Iran yesterday. We don't often hear from Iran, but I do periodically. And they're going forward. And they said they're thinking of a trial of 180,000 people. Wow. That's what I wrote back to them. Wow, you guys can move. So it's a little harder in many countries.
You're telling me that in Iran, 180,000 people are going to be tested to try and stem coronavirus using the oral polio vaccine. As I said, Professor Dr. Gallo at the start, the oral polio vaccine has been one of India's most successful public health programs. Maybe today you are offering a glimmer of hope, therefore, to a lot of Indians who are watching at the end of this dark tunnel.
Let's take it again under controlled studies, okay? And let's make sure we collaborate. Okay, good luck to you.
Good luck to you. Okay, you need a lot of luck, Dr. Gallo, I know, in this battle that you and others are fighting, virologists across the world, but you've given us a sense of what could be the road ahead in this race to find a vaccine. Thank you very much for joining me there from Baltimore in the United States. The man who discovered the connection between HIV and AIDS, telling us that the oral polio vaccine could well stem coronavirus spread.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.